When Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man was announced, I thought to myself, oh, this is gonna be great. Now, this is before we saw any of the animation. It was just, what is this pitch? It's Tom Holland's Spider-Man and his origin story. And well, then as more things started to come out, they changed the approach. It's more of a what if Tom Holland's Spider-Man kind of had a little bit of a different approach, a different upbringing. Iron Man wasn't his mentor. It was actually Norman Osborn. And I thought, okay, like, that could be cool. And then I saw the animation and then the way it moved, and it didn't really impress me all too much. I understood what they were going for in terms of the classic Spider-Man comic feel, but none of that excited me. I kind of just threw this on the back burner and said, not excited for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. And it easily is my least anticipated for any comic book property this year. But then I got to see the show, and I take all that back. Every bad thing I've said, I was wrong. I will admit it. I was wrong again about a property, and maybe I shouldn't have judged it so harshly, but I mean, the marketing wasn't the best. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new TV review. Today, we're discussing Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Season 1 at least, and Disney was very gracious to send the entire season over. Usually, they only send like a couple episodes, which I think is like always the dumbest thing. So thank you to Disney for sending over, again, the full season. You guys should do this way more often because it gives us a better approach to what we feel on a show. And I will say, for this series alone, if they would have just given me the first 3 episodes, I'd be as high on this show as I am talking about it in this review. I would be like, yeah, it's good. It's solid. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it doesn't impress me to any sort of degree. But what is here is really something that actually anticipated me. Like, by the time I got to the 3rd episode, every episode after that, the way it ended in its manner made me want to jump into the next one. And I ended up binging this in just one sitting because I was very impressed to see what was going to happen in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which again is an animated series that follows Peter Parker on his way to becoming Spider-Man in the MCU. With a journey unlike anything we've ever seen, and a style that celebrates the character's early comic book roots. Now, as I said, this is very much a what-if approach to the MCU Spider-Man that we know. Instead of Iron Man showing up at his apartment building and introducing himself to his aunt, it is Norman Osborn. And all these aspects just intrigue me. And especially in theory, because as I watched this show, by the time it ended, I said, this feels that if Kevin Feige had full control over Spider-Man in the MCU, this is the approach they would have done. If Sony wasn't meddling and they didn't have to do all these other mumbo jumbo, this is exactly what Kevin Feige would have done with the web crawler from the start. And I think in that manner, it makes me excited and happy to have this different approach, to have this what if approach. And it makes me go, damn, I wish this was live action. But other times it makes me go, I appreciate that now we have this alternative look, and I appreciate that now we have 2 different kind of Spider-Mans running around in the world of the MCU in certain degrees. We have the Tom Holland live action one, and we have this version of Spider-Man 2. And for me, that is, I think, the reason to watch this is to see truly enough the actual thing of that. Put past any of your pre-notions on the animation or just the concept, and don't just go into it thinking, oh, it's another Spider-Man series. No, it's something special. And again, you won't feel that after the first 3 episodes, but I promise you by 4, 5, and 6, you're going to start getting really into the story. And by the end of it, I was very much won over that. I wish season 2 was already out and here for us to enjoy. So there's a lot to really appreciate, and I'm excited to talk about this series. So make sure to hit that like, subscribe button, comment down below, and let's dive a little bit deeper into this. So one thing I want to mention is, Coleman Domingo plays Norman Osborn in here, and I think it is without a doubt incredible what he is able to do with this role. Norman Osborn is one of my favorite villains of all time. I just love that dynamic, and I love that dynamic in the comic when Peter gets to kind of work with him. And the fact that, like, Hudson Thames, who also does a great job as Peter Parker in here, their dynamic is wonderful, but I really do believe that Coleman Domingo is such an inspired pick to play Norman Osborn that I would not be opposed to seeing him play this in live action. I actually really hope that would eventually be the route that they go into, because, like, even in this, and this has been announced, so this isn't a spoiler, but, like, Charlie Cox plays Daredevil in here. So, I mean, for me, let's put this 2 and 2 together, man. It's kind of like one of those things that just makes me appreciate. And I thought the entire voice cast overall was pretty damn impressive. I also will say it is awesome to see kind of Peter Parker in this light, having all these different suits and being able to be inspired from the comic book series itself. But I think the coolest aspect is actually getting to play with a lot of his villains. Otto Octavius, Scorpion, so many more, and even origin stories that I know eventually we will get more of. These little things, again, just add to the world of Spider-Man, because Spider-Man, again, has one of the biggest rogue galleries you could have. You can flesh out New York just based on that, based on the street level stuff. And it's really great to see how they're able to bring that to life in here. And moving in a little bit deeper and like kind of just to a different notion, I'm very impressed to see how they're able to pull that all off. I think, again, you have great voice casting, you have great ideas within this what if alternate universe of the MCU Spider-Man, all of that kind of pieces together. I also really like how they kind of balance Peter Parker's life overall, whether it's him being Spider-Man, him trying to do this intern program, him trying to balance his friendships, his family. You start to see a lot of that, and they, again, do a great job to where every character is pretty multi-layered. All of his friends, like the jock that you would just assume is going to be a dick to Peter Parker, actually has a lot of stuff going on at home that made me intrigued. You look at Harry Osborn the same way. When he gets introduced, you're like, oh, okay, but then they start to layer out more details for him. Even Nico, I think, becomes one of the more intriguing characters too, how they develop her backstory and what kind of brings all these characters together. And again, these are things that impress me and surprise me because I don't expect to get that from a series like this. Most animated Spider-Man series, as much as I've loved them, like the 90s one is the one that I grew up with, and if you were to tell me like which animated series should they have done, I would have said, yeah, you should have probably just continued that. But it is cool that we now have this version to follow through, and I'm excited to see where a lot of these characters end up going. Right off the bat, and within this season, you intrigue me immediately with the characters. You intrigue me with the balance between being Peter Parker and Spider-Man and getting that nice aspect. And then, of course, everything else just kind of comes to fruition. Now, I think for me, the one thing I want to talk about is the mixed aspects. And this is still something that I am curious to see how they develop in the future. I understand what they were trying to go for with the animation, but it's still going to be hit or miss for some. Some people it's going to work. Some people it's not going to work at all. And I'm one of the people that after the first 2 episodes, I kind of just got used to it. And I can say I was kind of a fan of it. I think it is pretty cool sometimes, especially in the action scenes, I think is where it really shines and shows off. Other aspects and other times, I think sometimes it looks just a little bit stiff, and maybe in the next season they can find a better balance of how like X-Men 97 very much approached it. But it is better than what the trailer produced, as well as just screenshots. This is definitely a series that when you get through it all the way through and you see a lot of the cool moments with the animation, you can understand why they went in that direction. And the last big pro I want to say to this, and I didn't even expect this, but you know, as of right now, my kid is almost 3 months. And he's starting to like kind of realize and see stuff and all these things, but sometimes I'll notice him lock into things. And when I was feeding him, he was very much just like trying to look at what I was watching, which was the show. And he kept turning his head and just staring right at it, like obsessed with Spider-Man. And with Spider-Man being my favorite superhero of all time, that just made me excited. To where I put on his Spider-Man shirt that he has never worn, and he's excited probably just because of the colors, but that's cool. And the animation and all this stuff really, again, even though he's only 3 months and he has no idea what's going on, the fact that like I can say that like, oh, this is like his first introduction to Spider-Man, and it's a pretty great and perfect introduction to Spider-Man, makes me solidify my feelings even harder on Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Just swings past all my pre-release doubts, delivering one of the most compelling takes on the character yet. It feels like a what-if spin on the MCU Spider-Man that we adore, but also like the truest version of what Kevin Feige's original version for the webhead was. I am obsessed with this. I found this to be a perfect interpretation of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Again, some of the dialogue sure is cheesy. Sure, the animation's not going to work for everybody, and sometimes it looks a little bit stiff, but in terms of perfect avenue, I'm talking about the character and the interpretation of Peter Parker, who again is my favorite comic book superhero of all time. So with all that said, I'm going to give Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man an A-. Thank you so much again, guys, for watching this. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and comment down below your guys' thoughts. And of course, until next time, stay classy.